First, on the issue of taxes, which I know in this community has been touched, but we really didn't touch it in our debate with our committee questions. So we're going to break this up with the incumbents again, but for the purpose of this question, Marcus, because you weren't on the council in the last 2 budget cycles, we will not consider you to be an incumbent in this particular instance. So for the council president and Madam Councilwoman Puzo, how did you vote on last year's tax increase of 6.5%, and why?
Again, politics came into play last year when we were pushed up against the wall at the last minute. No, we did not rubber stamp anything, all right? Understand again that this takes a collective to put a budget together. The controller has a big part of it, the mayor has a big part of it, and the city council, all right? It was the last minute that we had to push up because of salaries and benefits that we had to ask for a 6.7%, I think it was, increase, all right? We don't do this because we want to. We did it because we had to do it at that particular time, because actually it was more, but it gave us an opportunity to bring it down. But again, it was the last minute that we had the opportunity to do that. This year, what we told the mayor was it had to be succinctly put in place as far as our budget process is concerned. The budget process has started now, okay? All of the commissioners are supposed to submit their budgets to the mayor now. So by September, we can start analyzing what's going on. There was nothing put in place over the years that we can go into a new fiscal year and not have a budget. It's been a request now to put something in place, and I said it years ago, all right, like the state does. When a budget is not passed by the state, they have to go into an austerity budget process, all right? There's nothing in place to do that. But I've noticed that the politics over the years that I've been there, that they will push you up against the wall up until December the 28th to try to put a budget together, and then you have all of the pressures on you to try to pass that budget before the first of the year. That will not happen this year, all right? The governor has put in place a 2% tax increase only. It's not realistic, but we're doing the best we can. We've asked the administration to do the best they can to keep it as low as possible, because we understand, public, that no one wants to pay any more taxes. We understand that.
Thank you, Council President.
No, let me answer my question. How did he vote? He didn't answer.
I voted for the budget.
Okay.
All right, you knew that.
Thank
You knew that already.
Madam Council?
No, I didn't rubber stamp. There's some realities that come along to tax increases, that most of the taxes that we pay come from the schools. 63%, 63 cents on the dollar. And our local tax is 29%. So we're looking at some systems that are failing, like the schools. Yet, our tax dollars are going to the schools. We're looking at governance of the schools that really have to be looked into drastically to make some changes here. Yes, I voted for the budget. We pay fringe benefits, we pay our pension funds, we don't want to fire anybody. I certainly would not like to see anybody get laid off. Every time that thought comes up, I think about Mary, who lost her job, and then John loses his job, and then what are they doing for their family? And I think that there are a lot of people that would think about that situation. So there are a lot of people that are in that situation, and we have to be very cognizant of that. I think that what we have to look at is people putting in to the plan of their benefits on the city level, and that's something that I do know is being looked at as we speak right now. None of us want any more taxes. I have children that live here, children that own property, young children. My son just had a baby. I want to see him, see her, be able to go to our schools. Thank you.
Of the candidates, and it has to do with crime. And for the sake of fairness, we're going to start with Damon and go that way down the line. No, they should have 2 minutes.
1 minute.
Okay, 1 minute responses is what I'm being told that you have. And for each of the candidates. As it relates to crime, which continues to plague our city, what in your opinion is working, and it's a three-part question, what in your opinion is working, what is not working, and how would you, and what would you recommend to reduce the level of crime in Mount Vernon?
Excuse me, I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt you a second. There's been a little confusion on our part. We do want to give each of the candidates 2 minutes to answer this particular question. Okay?
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry.
All right.
First, what is working? I think you have in your police department a group of officers that are dedicated. You have in your police department, and I know for a fact because my wife is a police officer, that are dedicated to the community. So a lot of it is working. One thing that is working, that we need more police officers from the community. Most of our tax dollars with the police department leave the community. Another thing I see is that with the police department, we need steady shifts for the police department, because steady shifts allow the officer to heal on the time. It's hard working those 3 shifts, and when you're dealing with the crime that you're dealing with in the city. And also steady shifts saves overtime. It saves overtime. Also, when dealing with overtime and dealing with pensions, you need what they call overtime equalization. There's a lot of police departments, you will see that one officer is always getting overtime. You need a way that the overtime will equal out through all the officers, so that some of the junior officers are getting that money too, and the city is actually paying less. The city is actually paying less. So those are the things that you could also look at. And having community policing. Community policing. A lot of times we see police departments, instead of using community policing and building a relationship, they're almost containing them in a certain area. And we also need a civilian complaint review board, because we cannot have any police officer that's going to cost the city over $1 million in lawsuits and still have his job. That's just not correct, because it's coming out of your pocket, and that's what we need. Thank you.
The fact that I live on 4th and 4th, more or less, I can tell you that the walking the beat has helped here in Mount Vernon. I don't believe that the machine that sounds off to let them know that there was a gunshot that went off.
That never worked.
That doesn't work. I know, we're talking about what has worked and what hasn't worked. So I believe that if we do have police officers that come from the community, who have a vested interest in the community, who know the parents of teenagers that they see making poor decisions, that they can come back home and say, hey, your kid was just doing this, and instead of just taking them and locking them up, because there goes his future, there went his options to go to college, there he just minimized his opportunity to get jobs. And so we need to have police officers that are working with the community, that are working with the parents, to make sure that our kids make better choices. And I believe that's what's going to help us all around, as I feel that is the major part of our problem in Mount Vernon. And it's almost as if they're waiting for our kids just to go to Valhalla. And I watch it on a regular basis. So I believe that if we showed our children that they could have a better future. I don't think they really know what they're giving up. I mean, at that age, they don't understand consequences. And so if they understand all the jobs that were out there, so that means if they knew the trades, they knew what vocations they could do, they would be less likely willing to ruin their future, because they don't know what their future holds for them. They're clueless. To them, the next stop is Valhalla. The next stop is going upstate. To me, no. I have a vested interest in the community. I have a son and I have a daughter, and I understand the pain that my neighbors have. And the fact that my son has friends that have been shot, it concerns me, because the reality is my son could have been that child. My son could have been standing next to that child.
Sorry, Sam. There needs to be balance with our police force and our community. We need to work hand in hand. for our community, for our children, our youth, or our future, okay? They can't just, you see a child walking down the street, feel that that child's gonna cause trouble. That child may be perfectly fine walking down that street. He may be walking to his grandmother's. We've seen that with the Trayvon case, okay? We need to work with our police department. We can't put them down, they can't put the community down. They need to know what our needs are as a community, as well as we need to voice, we need more police out there. We are very, very, very populated in this city. It's a fact. Pick up the newspaper. You see nothing about negative in the city of Mount Vernon. You really never see positive. And we have a lot of positive in this city, an awful lot of positive. We have a lot of people that care about what goes on in this city, especially for our children. So we need to work hand in hand with our police force. We need to ask our churches, would you open up the doors for our kids in the evenings, on a Friday night, a Saturday night? Give them something to do. Give them something to look forward to. Teach them respect. Our children today, it's very hard. Today's parents, a lot of us have to work 2 jobs. Back in the day, our fathers worked. Our mothers stayed at home. We don't have that today. In today's economy, both parents have to work. So our children get slighted because they don't have a mother and father when they walk in at 4 o'clock. They need to have role models to look up to, whether it be our police, whether it be a pastor, or whether it just be a mentor. We need to set these things in place. It will reduce our crime because our children...
I concur with most of what's already been said, but just to add to it, community policing. We need to police ourselves, okay? There should be more associations. There should be an association or a building association in every community, like the Fleetwood Neighborhood Association, which I helped get started back in the 90s as commissioner of the Recreation Department. If you see something, you say something. This no snitch rule on some parts of the city, crime continues. We are fortunate, very fortunate to have Chief Rayner or Commissioner Rayner now to be our police commissioner, who I got stopped by when he was just on the force years and years ago. He knows what's happening. He came from working with Janet DeFiore, all right? I spoke to Janet DeFiore personally and said, you know what's going on in our community. The guns, the drugs, you know it's coming in, and it's not us that's producing any of those things. I put her on notices. This has been a while ago. Neither am I a politician, so to speak. I'm an advocate of the people. Like in New York City, the advocate becomes the mayor if something happens to the mayor. So I am an advocate, all right? But join your auxiliary police. I started the auxiliary police back in 1986. Join that. Take responsibility for what's happening in your city, all right? Don't leave it all on government. Just what came out of the candidates tonight so far were ideas that we need to put and implement in place by perfecting them if we can, all right? Don't leave everything for government, because you have a tendency not to trust government anyway, all right? So if you give more input and more ideas that we can work with, all right, some ideas we'll take, some ideas won't be feasible for us to work with. But understand, it comes from you, public. Don't give up. My cousin wrote this book, Who Gave, I forgot the name of it now, all right? Who gave up the schools? Who gave the schools away from the public, all right? You've given your government back. Take your government back, people. Thank you.
Finally, something I can finally speak to, that I have some knowledge on. As far as community policing, I'm in agreement with Kennedy Jones as far as community policing, because the way people get to know the officers in their community, they have to be on the street. They have to know them. They have to see them every day. They develop a rapport with them. As far as the steady shifts saves overtime, I'm not in agreement with that. I think what the steady shifts do though, it enhances the community policing, because you always know the same officer is going to be there at all times. So a rapport is developed. We need to have cross communication, because our greatest resource is our youth. And our youth is in danger for the simple reason they're angry. They're angry at what they see around them. The police they're scared a lot of times. I used to teach cultural diversity to the state police, and that teaches the officers of the different groups that are around them, that everyone's not the same, that they have to work with them on a one-to-one basis, on an individual basis. Also, I think what we can have would work for us would be to work with churches and schools that have seminars for the youngsters, for the teenagers, for the young people in the area, to let them know how you should act when the police approach you, what you should do, what type of behavior you should display, so therefore things won't be mixed up and people won't be able to say, well, this person did this and this person did that. I spoke to a gentleman not long ago, and even though the police don't know how to approach some people, because they approach in a very warrior-like way, and that puts people on edge, you know, but at the same...
Most of everything that has been said this evening. What's working is that we have a wonderful new police commissioner, Mr. Terrence Rayner. Terrence Rayner comes from this community. He is an advocate for this community. He knows all sides of the community, and he knows how to treat the people in the community. What's not working is that we don't have enough community policing. When I was young, we had cops that walked the beat, and they knew everybody's name, and they were comfortable talking to the kids. They knew how to talk to them because they were a part of the community. They were there. They knew Johnny's name. They knew the mother. They could say to him, "You go home because your mother is going to give you a beating if you're doing what you're doing." We grew up like that. And we have to get back to that. Our police officers that we just swore in, 20 new police officers. We have to make them believe in our community so that they don't leave. We have to teach them how to respect our people in all areas of this community. That is very lacking, and I see it. But I will tell you that Terrence Rayner, he is a plus for this city. I chair public safety and codes this year. I have called him many, many times. He's responsive. I've asked him to go out to do several things for the constituents. I have received phone calls back from constituents saying, "Thank you, Mr. Rayner is a wonderful commissioner. I hope he stays with us. He's doing his job." And I think that's what will make our community a safer place to live.
I think everything has really been said. One thing I do know is that we have great people in the community. We've been campaigning. I'm sure all of us have been campaigning, knocking on doors, going to churches. We have a lot of great people here, people who have worked hard, people that have had parents that lived here, et cetera, et cetera. We also have great employees in the city. Some of the policemen are the best out there that we have. One of the problems that we have with the police, though, is that Mount Vernon is a tough city to maintain. And a lot of times they come into Mount Vernon to get the training and then they leave. So we really need to find a way to convince our strong, good, community-minded police officers not to leave us and go to the Bronxvilles, the Scarsdales, the easier jobs. But I just want to talk about, we have great employees. Our firemen are excellent. Our DPW guys are great. And we have to really applaud some of these people that are working for us. These guys work for us. So we have good staff in the city. What's not working, and we know this, our communications don't work. To get information out to people, we just can't seem to do it. We had a gentleman that swore that there was nothing to do with Mount Vernon. We asked him about Ben Gordon Weekend, and he didn't know what that was. And we just couldn't understand, how can you not know about Ben Gordon Weekend? So we really need to get our communication data and our city perception. We have to stop downing our own city. We have to start making people believe that Mount Vernon is a great place and stop perpetuating the negative in Mount Vernon. This is things we don't need to hear. And what we really need to do is get community centers open for our youth and not just have them play basketball and just throw them in a room where they could run around. We need to develop programs that these kids can get into, science programs, and get them excited. School isn't fun anymore. We need to find programs to get them really excited to build their mindsets so that they can go out in the world and make us proud. Thank you.